You may know Joseph Lister for his revolutionary use of carbolic acid, saving countless lives. But arguably his true brilliance, his most daring, life-saving decision came 14 years earlier, in the dead of night, with a woman's life hanging by a thread. This is the story history almost forgot. Midnight, the quietest hours in the shadowed halls of University College London, were usually Joseph Lister's time for quiet study and the solitary rounds. But tonight, that stillness shattered. Uproar echoed from the streets outside. Snatching his candle, he paced towards the main doors. His hurried steps echoed along the hardwood hallways, shadows twisting across the archways of sleepy wards. Before he reached the front doors, they burst open with a crash. A police officer stumbled backward into the hallway, struggling under the weight of a woman cradled in his arms. Her face was pale, her breath shallow, eyes closed, but it was the horror of her wound that froze Lister in place. Slick, coiling loops of her intestines spilled from a gaping stab wound in her abdomen. Death was closing in. The woman was Julia Sullivan, a mother of 8, trapped in a brutal marriage to Jeremiah, a violent alcoholic. For years, she endured his abuse with little hope of escape. In Victorian London, wife-beating was all too common, and there was almost no support for married women suffering domestic violence. Desperate, Julia did the only thing she could. She fled their home, seeking refuge with an elderly widow in Camden Town. But Jeremiah was not one to let go easily. Paranoid and consumed by jealousy, he hunted her down. One night, he confronted her outside her temporary lodging, demanding she return home. His drunken shouting drew the attention of neighbours, their watchful eyes turning the street into a stage of public shame. Embarrassed and hoping to defuse the situation, Julia reluctantly agreed to accompany him to a nearby pub, where he promised to calm himself. But alcohol only fueled his rage. Julia, joined by her friend Bridget Bryan, soon decided to leave Sullivan behind, hoping to escape the escalating tension. They hurried away, putting distance between themselves and the drunken chaos. But without warning, Jeremiah reappeared from an alleyway, his fury now a deadly weapon. He plunged a long, narrow knife into Julia's stomach. She collapsed, blood soaking her dress. Bridget's shocked voice cut through the horror. "Sullivan, you have killed your wife!" The police arrived swiftly. Thomas Gentle, the duty officer that night, seized Jeremiah. Even as he was dragged away, Jeremiah's deranged rant echoed in the night. His only regret was that her imagined lover wasn't there, so he could have done them both alike. With Sullivan in shackles, Julia was rushed to the nearest hospital. In Victorian London, where medical care for the poor was never guaranteed, and access based on a complex ticketing system, the severity of her wound became her first stroke of luck. She would be treated without question. Her second stroke of luck, she found herself under the care of a brilliant but relatively inexperienced surgeon. Lister was the only surgeon on duty that night, and he would have to work quickly and alone. After administering anaesthesia, he carefully examined the wound. He made 2 critical decisions that night. To save her, he would need to widen the wound, a drastic but necessary step to properly return her intestines to their rightful place. And he would stitch her gut shut rather than using cauterization. With steady hands, he set to work. Using a fine needle and thread, he meticulously sutured the wound, knotting the silk and carefully trimming the ends. In that dimly lit ward, Lister accomplished what few surgeons of his time would have dared. His decisive action, precise skill, and a touch of good fortune undeniably saved Julia's life. On his way home, a thought crossed Lister's mind. 2 lives had been saved that night, for if Julia had died from her wounds, Sullivan would surely have hanged for his crimes. The story of Julia Sullivan and her abusive husband is certainly one of the more sensational moments in Lister's career, but perhaps his most charming patient was years later, whilst working at Edinburgh Royal Infirmary. Lister's train chugged into the bustling station, steam hissing and metal clattering. Edinburgh, like London, was a city where death was never far from the surface. Many of the men sharing the platform with Lister would have remembered the notorious killers William Burke and William Hare. These two stranglers had murdered 16 victims, selling their suspiciously fresh corpses to surgeons eager for dissection material. Arriving at his new hospital, Lister passed a group of colleagues deep in conversation. "The newness of the hospital hasn't spared it from the plague of infected wounds," said one, resignation clear in his voice. Lister nodded thoughtfully. He knew all too well the deadly enemies that haunted public hospitals across Britain: hemorrhage, septicemia, gangrene and tetanus. These were the true killers, claiming more lives than the hands of any murderer. Despite the challenges, Joseph Lister's sense of purpose ran deep, guided by his unwavering faith. Where others saw mere cases, Lister saw souls in need, regardless of their station in society. One quiet night, a little girl was brought to the women's ward, her small body curled in pain. An abscess had swollen her knee, making it impossible for her to walk. After attending to the most urgent cases, Lister finally made his way to her bedside. He knelt beside her, feeling the familiar ache in his tired limbs, but his voice remained gentle. The girl was frightened, clutching a small, worn doll to her chest, and yet she held still as Lister carefully cleaned and dressed the wound. His voice was calm, his touch steady. As he finished and began to rise, the girl did something unexpected. She held out her doll to him, not as a gift, but with a look of quiet expectation. Lister paused, taking the doll from her tiny hands. A closer look revealed the problem. The doll was missing a leg. Before he could say anything, the girl fumbled beneath her pillow, producing the tiny severed limb. A soft smile touched Lister's face, but he masked it, adopting a serious, almost theatrical expression. He had a part to play. His brow furrowed in mock concentration, and he stroked his chin thoughtfully. The girl's wide eyes watched him, a flicker of concern in her gaze. Keeping up the show, Lister reached for his needle and thread. Threading it with slow, deliberate care, he began the delicate operation on his newest patient. His stern mask slowly melted into a warm smile as he worked. The surgery was going well. When he finished, he handed the doll back, whole again. The girl's large brown eyes spoke endless gratitude, but neither uttered a word. They didn't need to. As Lister walked from the ward that night, a lightness touched his step. The quiet joy of having healed more than just a wound. Of the many rules Lister taught his students, his encounter with the little girl and her doll spoke to one in particular. Every patient should be treated with the same care and regard as though he were the Prince of Wales himself. Joseph Lister's remarkable skill and unwavering compassion would earn him the title of the Father of Antiseptics, revolutionizing medicine and transforming surgery from a deadly gamble into a life-saving practice. His groundbreaking work ensured that infection was no longer a near-certain death sentence. But beyond his revolutionary discoveries, for me at least, it is his quiet, human moments that reveal his true greatness. The desperate fight to save Julia Sullivan, and the gentle, wordless bond with the little girl and her doll.
Which was your favourite part of the two stories? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoy your history delivered through rich stories and want to hear more, please give this video a like and don't forget to subscribe for more remarkable tales from the past. Would you like some bonus content? Jeremiah's trial was part of my original script, but didn't make it into the video. Head over to my community page where subscribers can access the extended script and find out, did Jeremiah get what he deserved? Thank you for watching.